In 5,000 years of recorded history, only a handful of days are marked by climactic events. One such day will soon begin for a 29-year-old officer and the men in his command.
Gentlemen, when we met at Wendover for the first time about 10 months ago, I told you at that time that I had great hopes that the mission that we were about to undertake could end the war. At the same time, I offered to release any man who felt that he could not work under the conditions of mystery and possible danger that might prevail. That offer still goes because this bomb that you're going to use is not an ordinary bomb. It's not a 1,000-pounder. It's not a 10-ton blockbuster. This bomb has the strength of 20,000 tons of TNT.
August 6, 1945. The day a new era dawned at Hiroshima in the light of an atomic bomb. In the 10 seconds that shook the world. And Providence made the raging sun to burn for endless time. And from this flaming orb spring man and life and all the world. So man has praised the sun and long since time began to find the source that gives it life.
The equation E is equal mc squared, in which energy is put equal to mass multiplied with the square of the velocity of light, showed that very small amount of mass may be converted into a very large amount of energy.
E equals mc squared, the words of Albert Einstein. And from this wellspring, science built the atomic age. But it took 40 years and all the genius of man. In 1905, Einstein produces his startling equation and gives new meaning to Madame Curie's discovery of radium. For New Zealand's Ernest Rutherford, radium unlocks the heart of the atom. Rutherford's protege, James Chadwick, explores the atom and finds the neutron. Madame Curie's daughter, Irene Joliette Curie, experiments with the neutron. And her success leads Italy's Enrico Fermi to the brink of the greatest discovery. Without realizing it, Fermi has split the atom, violating a commonly held law of physics that an atom of matter cannot be created or destroyed. Fermi has released the enormous energy foreseen in Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared. One of Fermi's aides will later say, "We simply weren't prepared to see it." But studying the work of Fermi and others, Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann suddenly realized the incredible truth and become the first men to prove that the atom has been split. The triumphant discovery occurs in Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany. But ironically, the burning of books, the campaign to exterminate 11 million Jews, drives out the very men who might have given Hitler limitless power. Albert Einstein flees to the United States. He leads a vanguard of refugee scientists, virtually stripping German universities of their best minds. One teacher compares Einstein's migration to the possible transfer of Vatican City from Rome to the New World. The Pope of Physics is moved, he says, and the United States will now become the center of the natural sciences. December 10th, 1938. In Stockholm, Sweden's King Gustav arrives for the presentation of the Nobel Prizes. Enrico Fermi, Italy's foremost physicist, is honored for achievement in atomic research. For Fermi, the Nobel Award provides the means his family from Sweden directly to the United States, to freedom. In a final gesture of disdain, he violates Mussolini's orders by bowing to King Gustav instead of delivering the fascist salute. Neither Fermi nor the distinguished audience in Concert Hall can know that at this instant, in Berlin, Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann realize that they have split the atom. January 1939, as Fermi arrives in New York to accept a teaching post at Columbia University, news of the discovery in Berlin reaches the college. Refugee scientists working at Columbia suddenly realize that splitting of the atom places Hitler one step from making an atom bomb. Fermi and 4 colleagues decide they must alert the United States government to the danger. Because he is a Nobel laureate, Fermi will be the spokesman. On March 17, 1939, Fermi meets in Washington with Navy representatives. In halting English, he tells his story of an incredible new weapon. But skeptical officers answer only, "Keep working. We'll be in touch with you." Desperately seeking a means to warn the government of the danger, Edward Teller and a second associate of Enrico Fermi, Leo Szilard, carry their appeal to the only scientist with enough stature to make Washington take notice, Albert Einstein. The gentle genius refuses the request that he go in person to the president, but finally agrees to sign a letter prepared by Szilard. Theoretically, the letter says, a bomb can be constructed that will destroy an entire port. Dated August 2nd, 1939, it is addressed to F.D. Roosevelt, the White House. At the White House, however, emergency cabinet meetings occupy Roosevelt as war threatens to engulf all of Europe. In this crisis, Einstein's letter receives only passing attention and is filed with the note, "We must do something about this." Spring 1940, Hitler's Blitzkrieg strikes. Belgium provides Hitler with uranium, and in Denmark he captures physicist Niels Bohr. Norway's heavy water plant gives him another key to the atom bomb, and Paris rewards him with the finest atomic laboratory in Europe. By the fall of 1940, Hitler's Third Reich can produce history's most destructive weapon. In Washington, the clamor for a large-scale research program to develop atomic energy reaches the White House through scientists like James Conant and Carl Compton. Echoing the fears of their colleagues, they finally convince Roosevelt of the need for action. The all-out drive is launched. It is December the 6th, 1941. By the summer of 1942, control of the atom bomb project passes to the hands of the Army under the code name Manhattan Engineering District. Engineer Chief General Eugene Rybold gives command of the Manhattan Project to Brigadier General Leslie Groves, the man who built the Pentagon. The security lid is clamped on. The Manhattan Project is so secret that only a handful of people know it exists. Even carefully screened personnel are given only enough information to do their jobs. Newspapermen receive a list of words banned for the duration. To avoid arousing suspicion, the key phrases uranium fission and atomic energy are spotted among fictitious names like yttrium. Science editors cannot write about atomic physics. Even the comic strip Flash Gordon is censored. The word atom disappears from the vocabulary of America. American colleges are now raided for manpower. Students are snatched from the campus and drafted into the Manhattan Project. Nobel Prize winner Ernest Lawrence is thrust into the work, along with brilliant young men like J. Robert Oppenheimer. From Columbia University comes Dr. Harold Urey, Nobel laureate in chemistry. Still another Nobel winner, Dr. Arthur Compton, helps launch a vital experiment from a makeshift laboratory beneath Chicago University's Stagg Field. Here on December 2nd, 1942, scientists attempt to start a controlled chain reaction to prove the theory that a bomb is possible. But they also face a danger. If they lose control of the chain reaction, Stagg Field may blow up, and radiation could endanger the city of Chicago. Enrico Fermi ignites the first atomic fire. A neutron counter broadcasts activity inside the furnace as the first control rod is withdrawn. When the last one is out, theoretically, a chain reaction will begin. At 3 p.m., Fermi and his assistant gingerly approach the threshold of a new age. A coded message called to Washington heralds Fermi's success. The Italian navigator has landed in the New World. Now, across America, nerve centers are chosen for producing an atom bomb. Pasco, Washington. Here, a giant industrial complex will blossom. Wendover Field, Utah, will become a special Air Force training base. Somewhere in New Mexico, a test site must be chosen. But it is in a secluded valley near Clinton, Tennessee, that the first work begins. Here at Oak Ridge, the largest manufacturing plant ever conceived begins to rise. It must produce 100 pounds of uranium-235, till now a product available only in microscopic quantity. Date for delivery is less than 2 years away. In a nation strained by the demand for wartime armament, an unbelievable amount of manpower and material is diverted to Oak Ridge, but sometimes not enough. Short of copper wire, project officers request the only suitable replacement, silver, 10 tons of it. Says an amazed Treasury official, here we don't speak of silver in tons. Our unit of measurement is the troy ounce. Nevertheless, $300 million worth of silver is melted down for use as wire in the plant at Oak Ridge. The net of security surrounding Oak Ridge keeps most of its 82,000 workers from knowing precisely what they're producing. Whatever it is, says one man, they can probably buy it cheaper. To maintain secrecy, personnel hired to empty trash cans must be illiterate, so they cannot stumble on classified documents. One Tennessee native says, strange place. Everything goes in, nothing comes out. In Washington, the expenditure of almost $1 billion causes a stir among congressional leaders. The head of the Senate Military Affairs Committee is about to launch an investigation when Secretary of War Stimson privately tells him, I can't tell you what it is, Senator Truman, but it's the greatest project in the history of the world. Truman calls off the investigation. General Groves summons to Washington Dr. J. Robert Oppenheimer and tells him he will head the largest scientific effort to date, the final development of the bomb. Groves has been warned that Oppenheimer's youthful associations with communist sympathizers may make him a security risk. Irrespective of information you have, Groves will write, Oppenheimer is absolutely essential to the project. Together, they decide to choose as their laboratory site an area near Oppenheimer's ranch in New Mexico. Isolated in the foothills of the Rockies, a town will grow here, known to its residents as Los Alamos. But to the world, it is simply Post Office Box 1663. March 1943. Convoys truck in supplies over primitive roads. Days later, scientists and their families suddenly find themselves deposited in this strange new town. Here, they're told, you will stay for the duration. No leaves, no vacations, and no one may know where you are or what you're doing. In an address to his staff, General Groves says, your jobs won't be easy. At enormous expense, we have assembled the greatest collection of crackpots ever seen. The crackpots number among them 12 Nobel Prize winners, men like Fermi, Lawrence, a melting pot of genius, a think factory, where under Oppenheimer's leadership, they must find the answers to questions that have never before been asked. Men like Edward Teller once estimated that it would take 20 years to perfect a bomb. The time allotted the Manhattan Project is barely 2 years. Late in the summer of 1944, the nucleus of the squadron picked to drop the first atom bomb gathers at Wendover Field, Utah. Their commanding officer, 29-year-old Colonel Paul Tibbets, is allowed to tell them only, we can shorten the war. Their orders are simple. Keep your eyes open and your mouths shut. The 509th Composite Group starts a unique training program. Veteran bombardiers must learn a radical new procedure. They practice dropping a single bomb from 30,000 feet with unerring accuracy, and then get their planes away as fast as they can. In England, Allied intelligence officers, fearing that Germany may also be close to completing an atomic bomb, order one of the key manufacturing plants destroyed. In Norway, the Germans have the only major center for producing heavy water, a vital element in creating the bomb. After damaging commando raids limit production, British bombers are sent in to put the plant totally out of commission. Concentrating on the production of B-2 rockets, Adolf Hitler has long ago abandoned atomic energy projects. But Allied intelligence reports still predict that Hitler might be close to having an atom bomb, and the fear serves as a spur to American scientists. Jornada de Muerto Valley, literally, the Valley of the Acres of Death, near Alamogordo, New Mexico. Here, in 5 months, in July 1945, the first test is scheduled for an atom bomb. One of the first pieces of equipment to arrive is a massive steel safe, weighing 150 tons and named Jumbo. A naive plan calls for the atom bomb to be exploded inside this safe, so that in case of a misfire, a partial dud, the precious supply of plutonium won't be scattered over the desert, but saved to be used again. Jumbo is insurance for $1 billion worth of plutonium. The test site is made ready. Oak Ridge and Hanford are producing uranium and plutonium. But even now, An atomic bomb is still a bit of theory that may yet prove false. The death of Franklin Delano Roosevelt on April 12, 1945, thrusts a little-known former senator from Missouri, Harry Truman, into the office of the presidency. On this day, for the first time, he learns of the Manhattan Project and the awesome decision he will have to make in the months to come.
Seconds that shook the world.
At the Pentagon in Washington on May 31st, 1945, a vital meeting is held at the request of President Truman. The Interim Committee, a panel of 12, including scientists, businessmen, and military leaders, must advise the president on whether or not the United States should use the atomic bomb. 4 choices are outlined to the Interim Committee by Secretary of War Stimson. 1, forgo the bomb and invade Japan. 2, demonstrate the weapon on a deserted island. 3, warn the Japanese in advance of the target city. 4, drop the bomb. The first choice, the plans for the invasion of Japan, Operations Olympic and Coronet, are revealed to the committee. 5 million men are to be committed to the kind of fighting that has taken such a terrible toll of life in the South Pacific. Landings, it is estimated, will cost 1 million American lives and countless millions of Japanese. Number 2, a demonstration for the Japanese on a deserted island proves impractical. Failure would mean an incalculable lift to Japanese morale. The third choice, prior warning, might cause the Japanese to move American prisoners of war into the target city to thwart the plan. The decision of the Interim Committee is rendered. Apparently, there is no alternative but to use the bomb without prior warning. Orders are sent to B-29 bases in the South Pacific, removing 4 cities from the bombing list: Hiroshima, Kyoto, Kokura, and Niigata. They are prime targets for the first atom bomb to be left undamaged, so that the full effect of the explosion may be realized by the Japanese. Mass raids on Japan continue, however, and in one day, 850 B-29s are sent to strike at the Japanese Empire. One raid, 16 square miles of Tokyo are set ablaze. More than 100,000 killed. In Tokyo, Emperor Hirohito asks his cabinet to end the war. But the men who launched Japan on the road to conquest refuse now to surrender. They pray instead for miracles. Friday, July 13th, 1945. Under armed guard, the atom bomb is moved from Los Alamos to Jornada de Muerto Valley. Press releases are prepared. If the bomb works, the public will be told that an ammunition dump accidentally exploded. Should the bomb go off with unexpected force, killing the key men at the test site, the world will learn only that a freak fire at Oppenheimer's ranch took the lives of America's top physicists. The Army dispatches buses and trucks to the town of Carrizozo, 30 miles from the test site, to stand by in case the population of 1,500 must be evacuated. Airports within 100 miles are told without explanation that all air traffic is banned from the area. Says a busy switchboard operator, something big is sure gonna happen. On July 15th, all non-essential personnel are ordered out of the test area. 150 selected officers and civilian scientists will be allowed to witness the payoff to their work. Some are sent to an observation post called Campania Hill, 20 miles from ground zero. At the last moment, Jumbo, the huge steel safe, has been abandoned. Scientists suddenly realized that a successful explosion would hurl 150 tons of steel across the countryside like so much shrapnel. Instead, Jumbo is set up 2,000 yards from ground zero. The central control point is 5.5 miles from the tower. Lines connect it to reinforced observation posts in the inner perimeter. Everything is in place at 0 minus 12 hours. On this day, President Truman arrives in Berlin for the Potsdam Conference, a meeting with Stalin and Churchill. Truman is aware that the test is proceeding on schedule in New Mexico. By chance, Stalin's late arrival will delay the start of the conference until tomorrow. By then, a successful test might mean that the United States will not need Stalin's help to end the war with Japan. The outcome of the negotiations at Potsdam may radically change in the next few hours.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now.
Spawned by the genius of man, a new age is born, in the roar of thunder and the fire of the sun. In this instant, Robert Oppenheimer recalls a passage from a sacred book of the Hindus. I am become death, the shatterer of worlds. On the first day of the atomic age, a handful of men survey the fringes of the test site. For a brusque, demanding general and a gentle, determined scientist, this is a day of triumph. And at Los Alamos, a night of celebration. For Enrico Fermi and Edward Teller, a 6-year struggle has ended. For Ernest Lawrence and hundreds of others, a mood of jubilance tempered by a single question. What have we wrought? Truman receives news of the test at Potsdam, and now the final decision is his. Among top Army officers, opinion varies. General Eisenhower will tell Stimson, we shouldn't introduce into war something as horrible as this weapon. Truman's top aide, Admiral Leahy, still maintains that the weapon is nothing more than a professor's dream. At Potsdam, Truman fulfills a pledge made to Winston Churchill. 2 years before, President Roosevelt had agreed that Britain would be consulted before a final decision was made regarding an atomic bomb. Churchill tells Truman there is no question that the bomb must be used. In later years, he will write of this day, we seem suddenly to have become possessed of a merciful abridgment of the slaughter in the East. Stalin poses a problem for Truman and Churchill. Should they tell him of the new weapon? Both leaders decide that to show their good faith, they will inform their intransigent ally of the successful test. Truman chooses an informal moment to relate the story, but the Russian premier simply shrugs. 3 days ago, The news had been given to him by Russian spies. The time for decision has come. In Truman's own words, "I did not like the weapon, but I had no qualms if in the long run millions of lives could be saved." On July 25th, the order is issued. Use of the bomb approved. To the Pentagon, to Los Alamos, to the island of Tinian goes the alert. Critical bomb parts start the trip to the airbase in the South Pacific. On the island of Tinian, where the 509th, the atom bomb squadron, has already been stationed. By air, scientists who will make the final bomb assembly leave the United States. On this day, the cruiser Indianapolis arrives at Tinian carrying the casing for the bomb and part of the critical block of uranium needed to set off an atomic explosion.
Greetings, everybody. This is your number one enemy, your favorite playmate, Orphan Ann of Radio Tokyo. The little sunbeam whose throat we like to cut.
In her broadcast, Tokyo Rose taunts the 509th Squadron, saying, "We know you're there, but why aren't you doing anything?" Throughout the air base at Tinian, the same question is being asked. Other units call the 509th Glory Boys. Writes one wit, "Into the air their secret rose. Where they're going, no one knows. But take it from one who knows the score. The 509th is winning the war." More than 1,000 highly trained specialists grin, bear it, and sweat out each day wondering. July 28, 1945. In Tokyo, an emergency meeting of the Japanese cabinet is summoned to consider Allied demands for immediate unconditional surrender. Their decision, mokusatsu. Answer only with silence. August 1st. General Curtis LeMay outlines plans for the first atomic bomb raid. Because Hiroshima has no reported prisoner of war camps, it becomes primary target. The date for the raid is set, August the 6th. On August 2nd, President Truman begins his trip home, stopping briefly in England to meet with King George. During an informal talk with the President and Admiral Leahy, the King mentions the atomic bomb. Says Leahy, "It won't work." To the Admiral's surprise, the King answers, "Would you like to make a bet on that?" On the island of Tinian, it is Sunday, August the 5th, and a single B-29 is brought under armed guard to an isolated corner of Northfield. Sleek, stripped of all but essential equipment, a $1 million plane is assigned to carry a $2 billion cargo. Colonel Tibbets, in honor of his mother, has named his plane the Enola Gay. Prime concern on this day is the possibility that the Enola Gay may crash on takeoff and blow up all of Tinian. It is decided that the dangerous job of arming the bomb will be done after the plane is up. Even now, no one on Tinian is allowed to see the bomb. Late in the afternoon, the squadron is given a final briefing. Weather planes, they learn, will precede them to the target cities. If the primary city, Hiroshima, is overcast, they will take the one that is open, either Kokura or Nagasaki. The takeoff will be dangerous because the weight of their payload is over 10,000 pounds. And now they learn, too, its full potential.
It's not a 1,000-pounder. It's not a 10-ton blockbuster. This bomb has the strength of 20,000 tons of TNT. A bomb similar to the one that we're going to use was exploded in the desert in New Mexico.
Steaming toward home at this moment, Harry Truman knows the decision is irrevocable. The wheels have gone full turn. In the Pentagon, General Groves and his staff remain overnight, beginning the long wait. 2,000 miles away, in Los Alamos, Robert Oppenheimer also waits. "2:15 a.m., August 6th. For 12 men, Colonel Tibbets, the crew of the Enola Gay, and the Navy captain who will arm the bomb, William Parsons, the last moments pass with bewildering speed. Then it's time to go, with the nagging fear that the Enola Gay might not make it off the ground. "2:45 a.m. Alone, the Enola Gay begins her flight to one of 3 cities on the islands of Japan. In Moscow, on this day, Stalin returns to the Kremlin as the last light of the northern sun begins to fade. In London, it is 8:45 p.m. American GIs, veterans of combat in Europe, wait out orders to ship home or on to the South Pacific. 3:45 p.m. at Coney Island, New York. More than 1 million people jam the beach, each concerned with his own special problems. 4:52 a.m., August 6th. The Enola Gay reaches her first checkpoint. Below is the snout of Mount Suribachi, the pork chop shape of Iwo Jima. 2 escort planes from the 509th rendezvous with the Enola Gay, the Great Artiste, and number 91. On schedule, the 3 planes wheel toward Japan. The all clear sounds in Hiroshima. An observation plane has made a pass at the city, but dropped no bombs. The Enola Gay arrives at 8:11 a.m. On time, on target. will take the bomb 43 seconds to reach Hiroshima. The Enola Gay strains to escape the fury she has unleashed. At 0, -15 seconds, a warning tone sounds in the plane. In 10 seconds, the world will shake. For generations yet unborn, for centuries ahead, for all time to come, Hiroshima stands as mute witness to the tragedy of war in the age of the atom. The searing heat and cataclysmic force that destroyed a city, that shook the world, now bring peace. Aboard the battleship Missouri in Tokyo Harbor, on September 2nd, 1945, General Douglas MacArthur opens the ceremony that marks the surrender of the Japanese Empire.
It is my earnest hope, and indeed the hope of all mankind, that from this solemn occasion, a better world shall emerge out of the blood and carnage of the past. A world founded upon faith and understanding.
They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Hiroshima. Here a new age began, and here a new city has grown. Proof that ultimately the will, the mind, the spirit of man triumphs. To future generations belongs the promise born in this city. And in the laboratories at Oak Ridge, Hanford, and Los Alamos, that promise is being fulfilled. A young breed of scientists continues to develop the great potential stored within the atom. The Manhattan Project has given way to peacetime projects, to studies of atomic surgery that will one day revolutionize medicine, to the design of nuclear power plants to supply electricity for home and industry, to Project Rover, research on nuclear rockets to propel man to the infinity of space, and Operation Plowshare to carve canals and tunnel through mountains. Here, the atom shapes tomorrow's world.
We will have an accelerator beam in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. We now have an accelerator beam.
On a summer day in 1945, the stillness was shattered in a remote New Mexico desert. 1,000,000 years of civilization had produced the birth of the atomic age. A force for good or evil? The choice belongs to man.